Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the What If. Chapter 13. Silence, screamed Sarutobi as he stood at the edge of balcony overlooking the stadium. The disappointment he felt at his people for their treatment of Jinchuriki seeping into his voice. His command was ignored by the civilians as they continued to try and find anything they could use as a weapon and get down to the arena so they could kill Gaara. Frowning at his orders being ignored, the aged Cage flared his chakra and unleashed massive amounts of killing intent on the civilians in the stands. That seemed to do the trick as everyone in the stands froze in fright as the feeling of certain once again covered the arena. The civilians and shinobi in attendance turned to source of the incredibly thick killing intent only to see their Hokage glaring at every last one of them. You should be ashamed of yourselves, to treat a shinobi from an allied village in such a way simply because he carries a burden you do not understand as a disgrace to the village of Konoha. But Lord Hokage, we can't allow another demon spawn to taint our village. It was by the courage of us civilians that the Kyuubi spawn no longer taints our village, and it seems we'll have to take action once again to rid ourselves of another demon. Screamed a courageous, or foolish, civilian. This seemed to knock the other civilians out of their fear-induced stupors and they tried to once again get down to the arena to finish off another demon. It seems you don't have as much control over your villagers as you once though, Sarutobi said with a smirk as he watched the crowd continue to try and attack Gaara. I can see why Naruto decided to leave this pathetic place. Unknown to his guards, the Hokage's frown immediately turned into a cunning smirk. If only you knew the truth, you ignorant excuse of a Cage, he thought before returning his attention to getting the crowd back under control. Rado, contact Ibiki and have him prepare his forces for any kind of attack. Knowing my former student, he wouldn't hesitate to use this kind of distraction to his advantage, whispered the Hokage to his lone bodyguard who nodded and understanding quietly radioed the head of torture and interrogation to relay the orders. While his guard was handing out his orders, Sarutobi signaled one of the Anbu in the crowd to execute the civilian who spoke out against his orders. Nodding slightly in acknowledgement, the white-cloaked, wolf-masked Anbu vanished in a blur, only reappear behind the civilian that spoke and stab him in the neck with a kunai. The civilians froze when they saw this. They just couldn't believe that one of their own had just died at the hands of a Konoha shinobi, an Anbu no less. As they stood there, staring at the lifeless corpse that was still standing, with the wolf-masked Anbu looking at them from over its shoulder, daring them to try something. Their attention was dragged from the corpse by the feeling of certain death once again enveloping the arena. Turning to the source, they once again saw the Hokage glaring at them, and for the first time in years the civilians of Konoha saw what a true shinobi is. Someone who was willing to sacrifice everything for their village, someone who had shouldered the burden to protect and defend them so they could lead their normal lives, someone who wasn't afraid to remove any possible threat to them or to the village. All of you return to your seats so we can continue with the exam, ordered the Hokage in a voice that had not been heard since the end of the Third Great Shinobi War, a voice that demanded respect and showed the power he wielded, the voice of the god of shinobi. Too stunned and scarred to argue, the civilians returned to their seats as the shinobi and kunoichi present remained at the ready, should anything else go astray. While all of this was going on, A, B and Dodai were suppressing smirks at seeing the famed and feared god of shinobi being reborn. Konoha might just survive this thing after all. It looks like your plan is coming together, Naruto. Thought all three men before they returned their attention to the arena where Genma had just called for the next match now that the crowd was controlled. The disguised Cage, on the other hand, was frowning at this turn of events. With his secret weapon exposed, Konoha would be keeping a close on Gaara from now on and until he outside of Fire Country. Add in the fact that two of his new targets for the invasion were Jinchuriki and that they seemed to have a firm grasp of their Biju's chakra, and his original plan for leveling Konoha was slowly coming apart at the seams. Damn Kumo, they are becoming a bigger threat than I anticipated, thought the false Cage with a snarl as he watched the next begin with Temari using her battle fan to blow Shikamaru into the far wall. With Team 20, good work Karui, said Naruto as he gave his red-haired teammate a hug, before Yugito did the same. Everything is going exactly as planned, the shinobi are tensed and ready for anything thanks to the civilians. Even though it's unexpected, with the old man finally reclaiming his title as the god of shinobi, the chances of the plan succeeding during the invasion just doubled. True, but what about the final part of the plan? With the old man back to his true self, won't that make things a little more complicated? Asked Karui as she leaned on the railing next to her teammates to watch the match. Yugito nodded in agreement from her place on the railing as she watched the match over her shoulder. Karui's right, Naruto-kun. With the old monkey acting like a cage again, it complicates things for us, she said as she turned her attention to her team. From the corner of her eye, however, she caught Hinata glaring at her with all the hatred she could muster. Smirking at the arrogant heiress, Yugito got off of the railing and leaned into Naruto's right side as his arm instinctively wrapped around her waist. Her smirk turning feral, Yugito watched as Hinata activated her Byakugan, attempting to make her glare even more deadly than it already was, before turning her attention back to her boyfriend who was watching the match with a critical eye. "No, it doesn't," said Naruto, earning surprised looks from his team. Normally that would pose a problem, but not in this instance. "You see, the old man still thinks I'm working for Konoha, and he still believes I see him as a grandfather figure. That's his weakness, and that's what will cost him dearly. When we play our final card, the emotional pain that it will cause for him will be more than enough to allow us time to make our escape." Nodding in understanding, the two kunoichi of Team 20 returned their attention to the match at hand and had to resist the urge to sweat drop as the lazy Nara forfeited the match even though he had Tamari caught with his shadow. "Typical Nara," sighed the three Kumo ninja before they adopted serious looks as Shikamaru and Tamari left the field. "It's time. Don't hold back, Yugito-chan, do whatever it takes to eliminate her." "Right, Naruto-kun, I'll do what I can," said the Nibi Jinchuriki as she prepared herself for the match that was about to begin. With Genma. "Now for the final first round match, will Hinata Hyuga and Yugito ni please come down," said Genma as a very pissed off Hyuga heiress jumped down from the competitor's box. Yugito, on the other hand, took her time and gave her boyfriend a quick kiss before jumping over the railing and landing in front of Genma and across from Hinata. Said Special Junin was currently sweating bullets as he slowly tried to back away from Hinata, who was doing her best to cause Yugito to internally combust with her glare alone. Smirking at her opponent's reaction, Yugito turned towards the competitor's box and blew another kiss at her boyfriend, completely turning her back on Hinata. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Hinata charged at Yugito's unguarded back with fury pouring off of her in waves. Rearing her right palm back, the enraged heiress unleashed a vicious Juken strike aimed for the base of Yugito's spine. Spinning on her heel, Yugito swatted the palm strike away before continuing with her spin and delivering a vicious kick to the side of Hinata's head, sending her sprawling across the arena floor. "Now that wasn't very nice. The proctor hadn't even started the match yet," said Yugito in a scolding tone one would use when disciplining a child. Seeing that Hinata was shakily getting to her feet, Yugito turned to the scarred Genma before speaking in an innocent voice, "I think it would be wise to start the match, proctor." Not needing to be told twice, Genma quickly went through the standard procedure to start the match before he shunshed to other side of the arena and out of harm's way, he hoped. Not wasting a second, Yugito charged at the wobbly Hinata with a kunai in hand. Thanks to her Byakugan, Hinata managed to jump to the side in time to avoid the lethal blade before she twisted in midair and kicked the blonde Jinchuriki away. "Pathetic. Did you really think a straightforward attack would work against me, the heiress of the Hyuga clan?" said Hinata with the classic superior Hyuga smirk. Her smirk was replaced with a frown when she saw Yugito getting up from her kick and smirking at her before disappearing in a puff of smoke. What? How did she make a solid clone? Before she could even start looking around for her opponent, a familiar voice she despised sounded from behind her. "Fire style. Fireball jutsu." Hinata managed to turn around just in time to be consumed by the unforgiving fireball. Yugito stepped out from the shadows she was hiding in and watched the flames of her jutsu burn the area that her opponent had been. Suddenly, the flames of her technique dispersed to reveal a spinning dome of chakra with Hinata in the center. Slowly the dome of chakra began to fall as Hinata slowed down, spinning on her heel. Taking advantage of the blatant opening, Yugito charged in and delivered a spinning roundhouse straight to Hinata's face, sending her tumbling to the other side of the arena, near Genma. Slowly getting to her feet, Hinata glared at Yugito's relaxed form along with every member of the Hyuga clan that was present in the audience. "How?" said Hinata as she got her footing back. how did you get through the rotation? It is the ultimate defense jutsu. Yugito cocked an eyebrow at this, while waving her hand in a defensive manner. Ultimate defense jutsu. Yeah right, she said with a snort, earning her even harsher glares from the Hyugas present. Your so-called ultimate defense is probably the weakest and most ineffective defensive technique I've seen. Sure, it can deflect an attack, but when you end the technique you're left completely open to attack, as I've demonstrated. The Nibi Jinchuriki said with a smirk, causing Hinata to turn red with fury, not to mention that when you're using the technique you can't even keep track of your opponent. Dojutsu or not, no one can keep track of anything while spinning at the speeds your ultimate defense requires. An eerie silence fell over the arena as everyone, civilians and shinobi alike, could do little more than stare open-mouthed at the blonde Jinchuriki. Everyone in the village knew of the Hyuga clan's ultimate defense technique and that no one alive had ever been able to get through the defense to injure the Hyuga using it, until today. They couldn't believe some foreigner had just come along and not only gotten through the Hyuga defense, but also made the Hyuga clan appear as fools in front of everyone. The silence was ended when the arena was filled with massive amounts of killing intent, all of it coming from the Hyuga section of the stands. With Hiyashi Hyuga, how dare that insignificant whore insult the power of the Hyuga clan and the Byakugan? Hinata, if you do not manage to kill this urchin by the end of the match, I will take matters into my own hands, thought an enraged Hyuga clan head as he, along with every member of the main house present, glared at Yugito with their Byakugans blazing. In the arena, you bitch, you'll pay for insulting the Hyuga clan, screamed Hinata as she charged at Yugito, fully intent on obliterating her from existence. Smirking at the enraged heiress, Yugito quickly went through a couple of hand signs before finishing in the tiger sign. Fire style. Phoenix flower jutsu. Bringing her right hand to her mouth, Yugito launched multiple small fireballs at the charging heiress. Channeling chakra into her hand, Hinata swatted the first of the fireballs away, only to receive a cut on the back of her hand courtesy of the shuriken hidden inside of the flames. Shuriken, thought Hinata in surprise before she quickly changed tactics and started weaving in and out of the fireballs and continued her charge towards the Kumo Kunoichi. So she wants a taijutsu match, fine by me, thought Yugito as Hinata finally closed the distance between them and unleashed a barrage of juken strikes at her. Dodging one of the strikes, Yugito sent a quick punch towards Hinata's stomach, only to have it blocked by Hinata's open palm. Acting on instinct, Yugito quickly grabbed on to the wrist of the hand that blocked her punch and used it as leverage to pull her opponent into a crushing knee to the abdomen. Jumping away slightly, Hinata gasped for air before falling into the opening stance for one of the signature Hyuga techniques. 8 trigrams, 64 palms, she said before she unleashed the technique onto the waiting Yugito. 2 palm, her 2 strikes were easily dodged and countered by a kick to the head. Ducking under the kick, Hinata continued with her attack. 4 palm, again her strikes were dodged or blocked and she was forced to dodge a counter-attack. 8 palm, 16 palm, 32 palm, completely blinded by rage that all of her strikes were dodged or blocked as if they were nothing. Hinata entered the final set for her technique, 64 palm. As she watched the Kumo Kunoichi continue to dodge her strikes with ease, Hinata did something that hadn't been done by a Hyuga in generations. She altered her technique's attack pattern. As she was nearing the end of her technique, Hinata subtly reached out with her foot and kicked Yugito's feet out from under her. Taking advantage of her opponent's loss of balance, Hinata quickly sent the last strike in her technique towards Yugito's unguarded throat, intent on ending the match by killing her opponent. However, instead of feeling her opponent's windpipe shatter under her fingers like she expected, the Hyuga heiress was suddenly let out a scream of pain as her entire body was filled with electrical energy. The Yugito in front of her vanished in a shower of sparks, revealing it to be a lightning clone, as the real Yugito appeared from behind Genma before going through some more hand signs. Lightning style. Raising lightning jutsu, she said as the ground around Hinata began to shake slightly before multiple lightning bolts burst through the earth in random locations. Hinata, despite her slightly paralyzed state, dodged most of the lightning bolts that erupted around her and attempted to move towards her unmoving opponent in hopes of getting in close again. Her hopes were shattered though, as a bolt of lightning erupted from directly beneath her and pierced through her left leg as if it were butter. An ear-piercing scream escaped from Hinata as she fell to the ground holding her now blackened leg. Looks like this match is over, said Yugito as she unsheathed her wakizashi and held it in the reverse grip before charging at the prone heiress. With Hiashi Hyuga, we cannot allow this continue. It is time this whore learned her place, thought Hiashi before he and several other members of the main house vanished in blurs. With Naruto. That a girl, said Naruto as he watched his girlfriend incapacitate her opponent before moving in to finish her off. Turning to Karui, Naruto noticed several blurs heading towards the two battling kunoichi, Yugito to be specific. Shit, come on Karui, said Naruto in a rush before he jumped over the railing with Karui not far behind before turning towards the stands. Sensei, we need you. A blur vanishing from the stands was the only reply he got before the three Kumo ninja intercepted the group heading towards Yugito and Hinata. An eerie silence once again spread over the arena as the spectators watched the standoff taking place in the arena with bated breath. Team 20 stood across from Hiashi Hyuga and 5 other members of the Hyuga main house with looks of absolute rage. Their Hyuga counterparts glared back with equal rage as the tension in the air kept building. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed for what felt like an eternity before Naruto broke the silence with a tone that sent a shiver up the spines of even the most veteran shinobi present. What do you think you're doing interfering with this match? He asked as he tightened the grip in his ninjutsu in case things came to a head. It was Hiashi that answered, his voice both angry and arrogant at the same time. Who are you to question the will of the Hyuga clan? He said with a glare at the blonde boy. This lowly whore tried to kill the heiress of our clan. By law, we have a right to take whatever action necessary to remove any threat to our clan. Now stand aside and let us to put that worthless waste of life in her place for you. After all, you are from a powerful clan yourself. Why would you care what happens to this piece of filth? The temperature in the arena plummeted as Hiashi finished speaking. Everyone who had been present at the battle of the Great Naruto Bridge immediately knew what was coming, while every Kumo ninja present and Naruto's siblings all had one thought run through their heads when they heard what Hiashi had said: oh fuck. Naruto's body erupted in red chakra as he glared at the Hyuga clan head with blazing crimson red, slitted eyes. The fox head on his ninjutsu slowly started to open as Naruto's anger and killing intent kept rising. Acting quickly, Darui and Karui moved to block Naruto's path while keeping an eye on the Hyuga clan members who were covering their eyes in pain from looking at all of the chakra Naruto was unleashing. Yugito grabbed onto the front of her boyfriend's cloak before bringing his face to hers and engaging in a kiss that definitely wasn't appropriate in public. Cage box. Hiashi, you fool. Naruto may be working for Konoha as a spy, but Kumo will gladly declare war on us if anything were to happen to their ninja outside of the exams. Thought a furious Hiruzen Sarutobi as he glared down at the form of the head of the Hyuga clan. He not only risked war with his little stunt, but also risked us losing Naruto and all of the information and jutsu he would be bringing us. The aged Hokage took a glance at the Raikage next to him and was completely shocked at what he saw. Instead of being furious and shouting out demands for such an outrage, the young Raikage merely smirked at the scene playing out before them with a bit of blood leaking from his nose as he watched the two blondes continue to kiss. Shaking his head at what he saw, Sarutobi stood up and walked to the edge of the balcony before shouting in a chakra-enhanced voice. Due to the interference of the Hyuga clan, Hinata Hyuga is hereby disqualified from the tournament. The winner of the match is Yugito Ni, he said, while forcing the blonde slut's name past his lips as he tried not to choke on his own vomit at having declared the Kumo slut the winner of the match over the person he believed Naruto should truly be with. In the arena, Yugito pulled away from kissing her boyfriend when she heard the Hokage speak and had to suppress a smirk at the looks of rage on the faces of every Hyuga clan member present. Grabbing Naruto by the arm, she quickly led him back towards the competitor's box with Karui following behind. Darui sighed as he watched his students return to the competitor's box and glared at the retreating backs of the Hyuga clan members as Hinata was carried away by the medics before he shunted back to his seat in the stands. Well, that went well, said Kakashi with an eye smile, as the rest of the former Konoha Junin all looked at him like he was crazy. Well, you think that went well? A second longer and the arena would have become a war zone between the Hyuga and Naruto's team. How can you say that went well? Screamed Anko as she took a deep breath while glaring at the cycloptic Junin. Guy, Kurenai and Hayate were thinking the same thing, though they refrained from glaring at Kakashi as they knew he had to have a reason. Said Junin just pulled out his favorite orange book, causing Anko to glare at him even harder and earning a slight glare from Kurenai as well. It went well because the last time I saw someone insult or threaten Yugito like that in front of Naruto, he went on a rampage and killed hundreds of thugs and bandits in a matter of seconds, Kakashi said in a casual tone as if talking about the weather. This stunned the remaining 4 Junin as this was the first they had heard the disastrous mission their fellow Junin had taken his genin team on. Turning to Darui, 4 pairs of eyes silently probed for any kind of confirmation to what Kakashi had said. It's true, Naruto is more protective of Yugito than Kakashi is of his books, he said with a shrug since he had come to accept that Naruto would go to any lengths to protect Yugito. 4 pairs of eyes widened as they turned to look at their little brother being calmed down by his teammates, each thinking along the same lines. Note to self, when Naruto's pissed get Yugito. In the arena, Genma was doing his best to shake off of the shock at nearly being caught in the crossfire of the Kumo team and the Hyuga clan. Finally composing himself, he turned to the crowd before speaking, his voice still holding a bit of shock in it. That concludes the first round of matches. The next matches will be Naruto Namikaze vs. Sasuke Uchiha followed by Gaara of the Desert vs. Temari of the Desert, and Yugito Ni will proceed straight to the finals. We will have a short intermission to allow our competitors time to recuperate from their matches. We will resume in 10 minutes time. After 10 minutes of the tension growing for the genin competing and 1 Naruto later, Genma quitted the crowd down and began the second round of the tournament. The first match of the second round, Naruto Namikaze vs. Sasuke Uchiha. Will the 2 of you please come down? Sasuke wasted no time and jumped over the railing, landing in front of Genma with his usual Uchiha scowl as he glared up at the still shirtless Naruto. Said blonde merely smirked at him before giving his girlfriend a quick kiss and high-fiving Karui before jumping over the rail and landing across from the world's biggest emo. Well, I was wondering when you and I would finally get a chance to have that rematch of ours, said Naruto with his patented fox smirk etched on his face. Sasuke's glare only intensified at that comment, drawing a chuckle from the shirtless blonde. What, you're still not sour about that spar in Wave Country, are you? Onyx eyes bled to the crimson red of the Sharingan with 2 tomo in each eye as Sasuke started going through hand signs. Genma barely had time to start the match and jump out of the way before the Uchiha launched a fireball at our favorite blonde. Sasuke smirked when he saw the fireball impact with Naruto and start to burn the surrounding area. His smirk vanished when the fireball suddenly split down the middle and the flames dispersed to reveal Naruto with his ninjutsu held in his right hand and looking as if nothing happened. Is that all you got, Uchiha? I expected more from the so-called last Uchiha. Oh wait, you're not the last Uchiha alive, are you? Said Naruto as his smirk grew when he saw Sasuke's eye darken with uncontrolled rage. Your brother Itachi is still alive, isn't he? Shut up. Once I kill you, I'll find that murderer and kill him too. Screamed Sasuke as he started going through hand signs again, fire style, phoenix flower jutsu. Bringing his hand to his mouth, he launched well over 24 small fireball at the unmoving blonde. Sheathing his ninjutsu, Naruto quickly went through a few hand signs before bringing his right hand to his lips. Wind style. Great breakthrough, he said before launching a huge gust of wind that extinguished the flames, revealing the shuriken hidden inside. Predictable, he said before going through a few more hand signs before ending in the snake sign. Earth style. Earth wall jutsu. Leaning back, Naruto lurched forward and spit out a stream of mud from his mouth that grew and hardened into a wall, blocking the shuriken from reaching their target. Jumping up to the top of his wall, Naruto smirked at the look of rage and confusion on Sasuke's face. Surprised you couldn't copy my jutsu, Uchiha, said Naruto, shocking everyone in the audience that someone had managed to prevent the legendary Sharingan from copying their techniques. It's rather simple really. The Sharingan may have the power to copy any technique it sees, but that power is useless when the wielder is using a jutsu of their own. It's actually rather obvious and a major flaw in the Sharingan's abilities, since in order to copy a jutsu the wielder must have enough chakra to activate the power. Silence once again descended over the arena as yet again, another foreigner had just defeated and exposed a major flaw in one of the most powerful Kekkei Genkei in the village. No one was more surprised and angered that someone had pointed out a flaw in the Sharingan than Sasuke Uchiha. So mad was the last Uchiha that he completely forgot about the strategy he had come up with over the month break and jumped up onto the wall of the arena. Sharingan blazing, he went through 3 hand signs before cupping his left hand with his right. Everyone watched in shock as lightning started to gather in Sasuke's hand as he glared at the stunned blonde in the arena. With Naruto's siblings. Why that insolent little? Seethed Kakashi as he watched as his sorry excuse of a student continued to gather lightning in his hand. Guy turned to his eternal rival with a serious expression on his normally carefree face. Kakashi, how did he manage to get that jutsu? He asked as he stared at his comrade with a questioning gaze. Everyone else turned their attention towards the copy nin, each wondering the exact same thing. Taking a deep breath to calm him some, the cycloptic Junin turned to face his fellow Junin and spoke in a tone of barely restrained anger. It must have been during the mission to Wave Country. Naruto and Sasuke finished their fight before Darui and I did, so it's possible that Sasuke managed to copy the technique as I was preparing it to attack Zabuza. Darui nodded in agreement as that was the most likely thing to happen, although that still raised a concern inside of the Kumo Junin that he made known to everyone. Still, even if he had managed to copy the jutsu, the amount of training necessary to perform the jutsu could only be given by someone with a deep knowledge of lightning-based chakra. That raises the question, who could have trained the Uchiha to use the technique during the month-long break? This got some concerned looks from the former Konoha Junin as they turned their attention back to the match. In the arena, that bastard, he stole Kakashi Nissan's original technique, you'll pay for that one, Uchiha. Thought Naruto in a fury as he watched Sasuke continue to prepare his attack. Kurama, it's time we tested out the first of your jutsu. About time, Kit, I've been itching to see you use that technique, replied Naruto's tenant before he was covered in his demonic cloak with one tail. Naruto mimicked Sasuke but instead cupped his right hand with his left and flexing his fingers like claws before he started pumping Kurama's chakra into his hand. The crowd watched in shocked horror as Naruto's right hand began to grow fur around it before bursting into crimson-colored flames. Raising his head to meet the Uchiha's glare with his own, Naruto's eyes turned blood red with a slitted pupil while the sclera turned blacker than the darkest night, before he took off at speeds that surprised even his team and siblings at the Uchiha, who sped towards him with speed surpassing that of a Chunin. Time seemed to slow down as the 2 genin sped towards one another, each intent on killing the other with their respective jutsu. The 2 were so focused on each other that they failed to notice that the civilians in the stands began to fall asleep while the ninja present, who were still on edge from the earlier happenings, immediately dispelled the genjutsu around them. Just as the 2 of them were about to collide, an explosion of smoke appeared in the cage box before multiple blurs shot out of the smoke and onto the roof of the stadium. 2 blurs were also heading towards them, but neither genin was paying attention as they thrust their attacks at one another. Chidori, Kitsune style. Burning Fox Claw. The 2 lethal techniques collided in an explosion of power before the 2 genin were sent flying in opposite directions. Naruto skidded to halt just as his team and siblings landed around him, all ready to begin fighting. I take it the invasion started? Asked Naruto as he slowly got to his feet. Yeah, said Kakashi as he watched the smoke from the explosion clear away, revealing Sasuke leaning against 2 shinobi with blank masks on. So, Sasuke was being trained by Root Shinobi. That explains things. As soon as he finished speaking, an explosion happened at the main gate of the village. When the smoke cleared, it revealed 3 giant snake summons as they crashed through the gate and began to destroy anything in sight. The 2 Root Shinobi took that as their cue to leave and carried away Sasuke's unconscious body with them. Looks like you're right about them using summons to get past the out-defense, Naruto, said Hayate as he watched the Root Shinobi with a critical eye that only a master swordsman possessed. Naruto nodded in agreement before turning his attention to the newly created ceiling barrier around where the cages were. Yeah, let's hope my clones got their part completed in time to help out, he said before he did a quick analysis of the situation at hand. Alright, Karui and Darui-sensei work with Hayate to clean up the garbage around here. The 3 sword-wielding ninja nodded in understanding. Kakashi, Kurenai, and Guy the First need you to spread out to the surrounding area and make sure that no more enemy shinobi get close to the arena. Once again 3 nods were the only answer he got before he turned to Anko. Anko, I want you to track down Sasuke and those Root Shinobi. Do not engage them, but feel free to kill anyone else that happens to get in your way, sis. he said when he saw Anko pout at not being allowed to kill the annoying Uchiha. Yugito and I will help out the Raikage and the old man. I have feeling they're going to need all the help they can get. Alright everyone, move out, said Naruto before he and Yugito jumped towards the purple ceiling barrier. Unfortunately, he jumped away before he could see any of the smiles that spread across the faces of his teammate and siblings. He truly has the makings of a future Kage, and I know one day he'll become a Kage to surpass all others, was the general thought of all the Junin present before each left to complete their assignments. The battle for Konoha had finally begun. Chapter 14. Konohagakure no Sato Main Gate. Hold the line men, don't let them advance any further into the village, shouted Ibiki as he observed the battle from the top of a building. Damn, I should have taken that warning from the Namikaze brat seriously. If I had brought that silver-haired genin in, we might have been more prepared for this, thought Ibiki, inwardly cursing himself for dismissing the warning from the blonde Kumo genin so easily. Suddenly a Chunin landed near him with a few cuts and bruises on his body. Turning to the panting Chunin, Ibiki barked out, "Report. Sir, our forces are spread too thin. Squads 12 through 16 are currently trying to stall the summons from advancing into the village any further while the remainder of our forces are trying to hold back the advancing Suna and Odo forces," said the Chunin as he looked up at Ibiki to see the burly man frowning in concentration. "What should we do, sir? Have squads 12 to 16 break off from engaging the summons and regroup with the main forces to hold the line." Before he could continue, the wide-eyed Chunin interrupted him. "But sir, what about the summons? We can't just ignore them and leave them to destroy the village." "Leave the summons to the Anbu. I've already dispatched the demolition corps to aid in stopping the summons. Just get our men back on the front and hold back the invading forces," shouted Ibiki as the Chunin quickly nodded his head before taking off to deliver the orders. Ibiki turned his attention to the three giant snake summons that were currently destroying anything in their path. As he continued to watch the summons destroy the village, 3 Akamichi clan members grew to the size of the Hokage Tower and engaged the snake summons, one of which being the head of the Akamichi himself, Choza Akamichi. "If Choza's getting involved, then Inoichi and Shikaku can't be far behind," whispered Ibiki with a smirk before 5 Suna ninjas suddenly turned and started attacking their allies with a glazed look in their eyes. Not far from them, a group of Odo Chunin suddenly stopped in their tracks and grabbed onto their necks like someone was choking them. "Hey, so the Ino Shika Cho formation are making themselves known. I guess it's about time I joined the fray as well," he whispered to himself before turned to the invading forces and jumped down into the fray while making hand signs. Landing in front of a group of Suna Junin, he finished his hand signs before whispering, "Summoning Jutsu, Torture Chamber." The world around Ibiki and the Suna Junin suddenly turned dark before a cage closed around them and the enemy Junin had their wrists and ankles bound in chains. Smirking to himself, Ibiki made a few more hand signs causing the floor of the cage to open up revealing dozens of gears of all shapes and sizes before wires wrapped around the trapped Junin and began to constrict around them, specifically their necks. "Normally, I'd torture you for information, but I'm a busy man and I really don't have the time for that right now, so I'll just kill you and be done with it." With that said, he made on more hand sign. The gears started to rotate, pulling the wire around the Suna Junin's necks before finally cutting clean through them. Canceling the jutsu, Ibiki watched as more enemy shinobi charged them. Taking one last look around him, he saw the 3 Akamichis and the demolition corps of the Anbu getting pushed back by the snake summons. "Damn it, if only Lord Jiraiya were here," he cursed before engaging the charging shinobi along with the rest of his forces. A few blocks away from the stadium. "Where do these cockroaches keep coming from?" asked Kurenai as she kicked away another Odo Chunin. A few feet away from her, Kakashi had just stabbed another Suna Junin in the neck with a kunai before turning to see another 3 ninja take his place. Cursing under his breath, he uncovered his Sharingan before placing the 3 ninja in a genjutsu and leaving them to kill each other. "I don't know Kurenai, but just keep them away from the arena," he said before taking out a shuriken and throwing it at some charging Odo ninja. Quickly going through hand signs, he whispered just loud enough for the Odo ninja to hear him, "Ninja art, Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu." The one shuriken turned into hundreds just before impaling the charging shinobi. Needless to say, none of them survived. "I know that, Kakashi," said Kurenai in an annoyed tone as she placed another enemy shinobi in a genjutsu. While she was doing this, however, she failed to notice an Odo Chunin sneaking up behind her with a kodachi in hand. Before the enemy ninja had a chance to attack her though, he was stopped by a young voice's shout. Fang over fang. Whirling around, the Odo Chunin barely had time to react before he was hit from two sides by what looked like twin tornadoes. Kurenai and Kakashi turned to the source of the voice and watched as two kibas stopped spinning and landed a few feet away from Kurenai. "Kiba, what are you doing here?" questioned Kurenai with a stern expression on her face. One of the kibas gulped slightly before shaking off his fear somewhat and answering. "I came to help. We saw you guys heading this way, so we decided to come and lend a hand," said Kiba before he and the transformed Akamaru used their fang over fang to attack Asuna Chunin. "We," said Kurenai and Kakashi at the same time while sending a curious glance to each other. "Yes, we," said a deep voice that was all too familiar to the two former Konoha Junin. Turning around, the two Junin came face to face with Asuma Sarutobi with a dead Suna ninja held in a headlock under his arm. Not far from him they saw a shadow moving across the ground before attaching to an Odo ninja's shadow holding him in place. Said ninja tried to break free before he was rolled over by a human meatball that shrank to reveal Choji, with Shikamaru coming out of a shadowed alleyway. "Asuma, I thought you were assigned to the west gate," said Kakashi as he spun around and sliced another ninja's neck open. "I was, but when Rado radioed to the forces to keep on alert, I made my way to the arena to see if Pops needed any help," said Asuma as he blocked Asuna Shinobi's kunai with one of his trench knives and used the other to gut the man. "Right before I got there, the cage box went up in smoke and I saw you and Kurenai heading this way. I rounded up the genin there and we came here to help, though I don't necessarily like having the genin fighting like this. It can't be helped, one way or another, they'll eventually have to get used to fighting and killing," said Kakashi, though he had to hide the contempt in his voice. True, he didn't like putting children in harm's way, but these children were shinobi, they needed to learn to stand on their own and not rely on others to protect them, something his little brother and his teammates understood all too well. With Guy and Lee, the two taijutsu specialists were mowing through their opponents like a hot knife through butter. The invading Suna and Odo forces watched on in horror as the two green blurs continued to cut through their forces with their bare hands. "Lee, we must not let these unyouthful shinobi get near the stadium. If we don't stop them here, our flames of youth shall dampen," shouted Guy as he punched a hole clean through Asuna Junin's chest. "Yes, Guy-sensei, I will not allow them to get any further than here, and should I fail to do that, then I shall run from one side of the continent to the other on my hands. And if I cannot do that I will," Lee said, but was interrupted when an Odo Chunin tried to stab him with a kunai. Grabbing onto the man's wrist, Lee gave him a sharp elbow to the chest, effectively knocking the wind out of him, before jumping up to deliver a spin kick to the side of the man's head. "Such unyouthfulness," he said before he jumped over to his sensei, and the two of them began destroying the ranks of the enemy shinobi. In the arena, Hayate ducked under the kunai of Asuna Shinobi before running him through with his sword. Seeing an Odo shinobi coming at him from the right, Hayate twisted his sword that was still buried in the Suna shinobi's chest before cutting clean through the Suna shinobi and decapitating the charging Odo shinobi. Flicking the blood off of his sword, Hayate turned to see how his fellow swordsmen were faring. Darui was using his cleaver sword to his advantage and easily chopping down any enemy who dared to approach him while flicking kunai every now and then to stop charging enemies. Karui was using her katana to cut down her opponents with a deadly grace. Because she was a genin kunoichi, many of the male shinobi thought she was easy pickings and tried to gang up on her. Big mistake on their part. They soon learned that Karui was more than capable of defending herself and was proving it by aiming to cut off any male's junk that tried to attack. Wincing as he watched the Kumo kunoichi cut another man's junk off, Hayate quickly turned away and began to cut through enemies with the speed and precision of a master. With Karui ducking under another kunai that was thrown at her, Karui spun on her heel and gutted the three Odo shinobi who tried to surround her. Just as she was about to try and find another enemy to fight, she was forced to block a katana that was coming down of her. Following the blade, she found that her attacker was a girl with two buns on her head that resembled a panda. "You're that Tenten girl, aren't you?" asked a somewhat shocked Karui. Getting a forced nod from the girl, Karui pushed her blade back and got some distance between the two of them. "What the hell's with you? your village is being invaded and I'm trying to help you, why are you attacking me? Because that teammate of yours killed Neji-kun, said the enraged Tenten with a glare that could put even the Shinigami on edge. Karui just blinked in confusion for a few seconds before realization suddenly dawned on her. You had a crush on him, didn't you? She said as she unconsciously readied her blade, knowing this fight couldn't be avoided. I loved him, and now thanks to your teammate I'll never get the chance to tell him. Shouted Tenten as her tears started to fall, but her glare never wavered in its intensity. Since your teammate took away someone precious to me, I'll take away someone precious to him. With that declaration, the enraged weapons user charged at Karui with her katana at the ready. Raising her own katana, Karui blocked Tenten's downward slash before breaking away and swinging at Tenten's legs. Jumping over the strike, Tenten sent a kick at Karui's head which she rolled out of the way of. Not letting up in her assault, Tenten took out 3 kunai and threw them at the Kumo kunoichi before following them in. Blocking the 3 kunai, Karui failed to notice Tenten's slash at her side until the last second. Karui barely managed to jump in time to avoid a fatal injury, but she received a small gash across her abdomen. Okay, time to get serious, said Karui as she started charging her lightning chakra into her katana and shaping it into a row of serrated teeth along the edge of her blade. Kumo style. Lightning saw, swinging her lightning-infused katana at her panda-like opponent, a spinning saw of pure lightning launched at the weapon's mistress. Jumping out of the way of the attack, Tenten landed across from Karui with a smirk on her face. Her smirk vanished when she felt a shock run through her body. Looking down at her leg she noticed a gash that sparked a few times before dying down. Returning her attention to her now smirking opponent, the 2 kunoichi readied their katanas before charging in to continue their fight. Outside the ceiling barrier. What are we going to do now? We must help Lord Hokage, said a bird-masked Anbu member wearing a brown cloak. Turning to his right, the Anbu glanced at the wolf-masked Anbu wearing a white cloak. Captain. Said Anbu captain was currently deep in thought about the current situation and what they could do to help their leader. The only way to break this barrier is for Lord Hokage to kill one of the ones holding the barrier together, but now that they've constructed a barrier on the inside, that option is out of the question. If we try to get through the barrier using force, his thoughts trailed off as he glanced over at the charred remains of his subordinate. Before he could think further on the matter, 2 blonde blurs appeared beside him. The 3 Anbu whirled around ready to fight, only to come face to face with Naruto Namikaze and Yugito Ni. The wolf-masked Anbu was about to ask what they were doing, when he was cut off by his lion-masked subordinate. What are you doing here, demon? Before Naruto could respond, he was cut off by the wolf-masked Anbu of all people. Silence, you fool, show Lord Namikaze the respect he deserves, said the Anbu captain in a voice that left no room for argument. The 2 Kumo ninja were slightly surprised that a Konoha Anbu would not only defend Naruto, but also show him respect. That's right, I forgot that Anbu captains are privy to classified information that regular Anbu aren't. Perhaps I can use that to my advantage, thought Naruto before turning to address the wolf-masked Anbu. What's the situation? The lion-masked Anbu looked like he was going to say something, but was stopped by a look from his superior. Returning his attention to the 2 blondes before him, the white-cloaked Anbu began his explanation. Lord Namikaze, Orochimaru has trapped Lord Hokage the Raikage inside of the barrier, and so far all methods to break the barrier have either failed or been stopped. Naruto nodded absent-mindedly as he studied the barrier for anything that could be useful. His eyes widened when he felt something off about the chakra running through the barrier. Turning to his girlfriend he spoke in a tone that was a mix of surprise and humor. Yugito-chan, what do you sense from the chakra forming this barrier? Yugito gave him a confused look before closing her eyes and focusing on the barrier. After a few seconds her face lit up in surprise before melting into one of understanding. The chakra forming the barrier isn't normal chakra, she said, surprising the Anbu present, though, it's not demonic either. What are you talking about? Asked the bird-masked Anbu as he glanced at the barrier preventing them from aiding their leader. Simple, the chakra in this barrier isn't normal human chakra, nor is it the demonic chakra possessed by the Biju, said Yugito in what many would call lecture mode. Instead, it's a bastardized version of demonic chakra. It possesses similar qualities to that of demonic chakra but still retains most of its human attributes. It's an unstable and dangerous attempt at creating a new type of chakra that surpasses everyday human chakra. The three Anbu stared at the blonde Kumo Kunoichi in stunned silence. The fact that she could glean all of that from just sensing the chakra making the barrier was astounding to the Konoha shinobi. Meaning that even though it possesses demonic qualities, regular demonic chakra can easily overpower it, said Naruto before he nodded at Yugito, and the two of them were shrouded in the demonic chakra of their Biju. Before the three Anbu could react, the two Jinchuriki leapt from their position on the roof and were on a collision course with the ceiling barrier. To the awe of the Anbu and the shocked horror of the sound, instead of erupting into flames, the two Jinchuriki easily passed through the barrier before jumping to where the two cages were facing Orochimaru. With the cages and Orochimaru same time. So this was your plan all along, Orochimaru? Asked Sarutobi from his position in Orochimaru's headlock with a kunai to his neck. A, B and Dodai were a little ways away watching the exchange with interest, each silently waiting for the fireworks to begin. So what happened to the real cage? Oh, I think I left his body lying in some ditch a few miles outside the village, said Orochimaru casually as if he was talking about the weather. Whatever it is you seek here in the village, you won't get it, said Sarutobi before his body started to turn brown. Surprised, Orochimaru plunged his kunai into Sarutobi's neck, causing the clone to collapse into a puddle of mud. Turning to the other three shinobi trapped in his barrier, Orochimaru saw his old sensei wearing his full battle gear a few feet away from them. I'll stop you before you get a chance to carry out your plans. Hearing this, the snake Sanin couldn't help but start chuckling before he erupted into a full maniacal laugh. You're a fool, sensei. I have already got what I came for, he said, causing Sarutobi to frown while the three Kumo shinobi just raised a curious eyebrow at the statement. I gave Sasuke-kun my curse mark back in the Forest of Death. No matter what you do, he will eventually come to me for power. Scowling at his former student, Sarutobi vanished from his spot only to reappear behind Orochimaru with his hands in the snake sign. Earth style. Earth flow river. A river of mud erupted in front of the third Hokage, carrying his surprised ex-student with it. Going through more hand signs at a rate that surprised the Kumo shinobi, Sarutobi once again finished with the snake sign. Earth style. Earth dragon bomb. A dragon head formed at the beginning of the mud river and started firing globs of earth at the snake Sanin. Not letting up in his assault, Sarutobi once again went through hand signs, only this time ending with the tiger sign. Fire style. Fire dragon bomb. Letting loose a torrent of white-hot flames, Sarutobi watched as the flames ignited his earth projectiles and impacted with the pale-faced Sanin. Everyone was surprised as they watched the exchange. Dodai's expression though turned thoughtful as he contemplated what he had just witnessed. So this is what the feared god of shinobi is capable of. To think that he could use fire and earth-style ninjutsu to this extent without a Kekkei Genkai similar to mine is just mind-boggling. Naruto, I hope you know what you'll be up against when this is all over. Said shinobi was still glaring at the place where his attack had hit. Come out, Orochimaru, I know you're hiding. The Kumo shinobi watched as the pale form of Orochimaru slowly rose from the ground, still wearing the stolen robes of the cage. Kukukuku, you always did like to ruin my fun, sensei. Oh well, I suppose we should get this show started, but first, he said, turning to the Raikage and his guards, what side will you fight for? Will you side with Konoha, who has shunned and scorned one of your most promising genin, or will you side with me and help to destroy this pathetic village? Sarutobi turned wary eyes on the Raikage. Naruto may still be loyal to Konoha, but the Raikage and everyone else in Kumo would do anything to keep him in that village, even if it meant declaring war on Konoha. Orochimaru was also watching the Raikage with a critical eye. No matter what his decision, he and every one of his shinobi in the village will be dead when this is over. Although, facing the Raikage, his guards and the old fool all at once will be tricky. Even though I hate this village with a passion, you are too dangerous to be left alive. For that reason alone, I'll put my hatred aside and fight with Sarutobi to end you here and now, said as he fell into a taijutsu stance as B drew two of his swords and got into a stance while Dodai gathered his chakra and drew a kunai. Sarutobi frowned slightly, but then fell into a stance alongside the Raikage as they prepared to attack the snake Sanin. Orochimaru frowned as he observed his opponents for a second before throwing away the cage robes and sinking into his own stance. Neither side moved, each waiting for the other to strike first. Orochimaru tensed his body to attack before his senses kicked in and he jumped back, barely avoiding the kunai that would have taken out his neck. Turning to where the knife was thrown, Orochimaru saw two blonde blurs before his senses kicked in again and he jumped out of the way of three more kunai. Landing near the edge of his ceiling barrier, the pale-faced Sannin had to hide his surprise at the sight that greeted him. Standing beside the Raikage was none other than Naruto Namikaze and Yugito Ni, each ready for a fight. A. B and Dodai smirked at seeing their two favorite blondes ready to fight alongside them. The Hokage on the other hand couldn't hide his shock. Naruto, what the hell are you doing here and how did you get past the barrier? Apparently this question was on everyone's mind as they all turned curious or furious eyes to the two blondes. Simple old man, this barrier informed from a bastardized version of demonic chakra, meaning that regular demonic chakra can easily pass through it, said Naruto as he eyed his opponent warily. Orochimaru seemed surprised for a moment before it was replaced with his usual maniac grin. Kukukukuku, my, you sure are the clever one aren't you Naruto-kun? Perhaps I should have given you my mark instead of Sasuke-kun, said Orochimaru as his opponents all turned to glare at him. He was about to continue taunting them when a massive fireball came from above him, forcing him to dodge. Looking up, he noticed a clone of Naruto smirk at him before disappearing in a poof of smoke. Turning back to the original, he barely had time to react as two more fireballs were about to consume him. Jumping over the unforgiving flames, Orochimaru prepared to launch his own jutsu but was stopped by a powerful punch to the gut, courtesy of the Raikage. Not letting up in his attack, started to beat the Sannin into a pulp before finally sending him hurtling towards the roof with a massive axe kick. B wasted no time in taking the opportunity his brother provided. Jumping up to meet the falling Sannin, he moved to cut his head clean off. Unfortunately, just as he cut the pale man's head off, the Orochimaru in front of him turned into mud. Cursing under his breath, B turned in midair, looked around for the slippery snake. Dodai, watching the altercation from his position on the roof, noticed movement behind the eight-tailed Jinchuriki. Quickly going through hand signs, the lava user formed a rubber rope in his hands before swinging it to catch B's ankle. B behind you. B looked behind him only to see Orochimaru with a sword coming out of his mouth ready to impale him. Just as the sword was about to cut into him, B felt himself being pulled down towards Dodai and his fellow Jinchuriki. Landing next to them, B smiled in thanks before returning his attention to Orochimaru. Said snake user swallowed his kusanagi before turning to glare at the group of shinobi he was facing. Before he had a chance to do anything though, a shadow overcame him before an all too familiar voice came from above him. Guillotine drop. Looking up to the source, Orochimaru barely had time to register the threat before he was the victim of a falling axe kick, courtesy of the Raikage. Jumping away from the impact site, landed back next to B while keeping a close eye on where Orochimaru was. Come on out you snake freak. They heard chuckling before Orochimaru slowly started to come out of the roof with almost no injuries from the exchange. Kukukuku, I must say, this fight is much more entertaining than I could have hoped for. Although, I think it's time we evened up the odds a little bit, don't you agree? Said Orochimaru before he snapped his fingers and a small opening appeared in the barrier behind him and three blurs shot through it before the barrier resealed itself. The blurs stopped next to Orochimaru, revealing three shinobi wearing blank masks with the kanji for root on the forehead. Everyone, it'd like to introduce you to my old subordinates from my time in Root. Sarutobi tensed as he remembered the few times he had worked with Danzo's Root during the Third Great Shinobi War. Be on your guard, Root shinobi are not to be underestimated. Danzo raised them to be emotionless killers under his command. I guess with his death they turned to one of their own, said Sarutobi as he bit his thumb before going through 5 familiar hand signs. Summoning jutsu. Out of the poof of smoke that appeared came the one and only Monkey King himself, Enma. So it's Orochimaru again, is it, Hiruzen? I take it things have gotten pretty dire for you to summon me, said Enma as he glared at Orochimaru, who frowned slightly at this new turn of events. Yes Enma, we need to use the adamantine staff, said Sarutobi as Enma nodded in understanding before performing a single hand sign before transforming into a black staff with golden tips. Prepare yourself, Orochimaru. Today I correct the mistake I made all those years ago. Kukukuku, is that so, sensei? Then maybe I should call in a little more help, said Orochimaru before he started going through hand signs at an incredible rate. Clapping his hands together at the end of the sequence, Orochimaru smirked when he noticed Sarutobi's wide eyes, summoning jutsu, reanimation. A coffin rose from the ground in front of Orochimaru with the kanji for first engraved on the front. A second one appeared next to the first but instead with the kanji for second on it. Sarutobi watched with bated breath as the coffin slowly opened, while everyone else was preparing for the worst. Gasps came from everyone when they saw who was inside of the coffins. Standing before them were none other than the first and second Hokages, Hashirama and Tobirama Senju. You bastard, how dare you desecrate their names with that cursed jutsu, said Sarutobi through gritted teeth as he watched the two confused Kages look around them before their eyes settled on Sarutobi. You've got an old Saru, said Tobirama as he looked at his old student and successor. I'm curious though, what are you doing with Kumo Ninja? It appears that he is fighting alongside them, against us, said Hashirama when he noticed Orochimaru behind them with two control tags in his hands. Tobirama turned to look at the tags before he nodded in understanding. I see, so we have been brought back by my own forbidden jutsu. Orochimaru merely smirked before he placed the tags in the back of their heads. Now that the numbers have been evened up, why don't we get back to business, shall we? Said Orochimaru before he turned to the three root members. Dajimu, you handle the Raikage. Terai and Tera, you two handle the Kumo Junin. As for you two, I want to dispose of those two blondes. I want to see the look on Sarutobi sensei's face when someone he cares for is killed by his own teachers. Naruto and Yugito tensed as they prepared for the hardest fight of their lives. Before any of them had a chance to react though, the two Hokages shot forward, compelled by the tags to obey Orochimaru. Cursing under his breath, Naruto grabbed Yugito and jumped away from the charging brothers just in time to avoid two bone-shattering punches. Trying to take advantage of the revived brothers' close proximity, a spun on his heel aiming to kick the two in the head. Before his attack come land however, the two brothers jumped over the leg and continued on their way to the two blondes. Turning to pursue the two Hokages, A was forced to jump away as a fist the size of a horse nearly crushed him. Turning to face his attacker, A saw one of the root Anbu that was with Orochimaru block his path. Damn it, he muttered before glancing at B and Dodai only to find them facing off against one the root Anbu as well. Cursing under his breath, A returned his attention to his opponent before falling into his taijutsu stance. Better make this quick, Naruto and Yugito are gonna need all the help they can get. With Sarutobi and Orochimaru. You're a coward, Orochimaru. Only a truly twisted person would use such a jutsu and then have those two attack mere children, said Sarutobi as he stared his old student down. Orochimaru merely chuckled before sinking into his taijutsu stance. I thought you would be happy, sensei. After all, you are finally reunited with your old teachers, he said with a twisted smirk as he watched Sarutobi's face contort in anger. I've had enough of this, Orochimaru. It's time I did what should have been a long time ago, said Sarutobi as he charged his former student, his adamantine staff at the ready. Somewhere outside Konoha. Are we almost ready? The attack has already begun, said a Naruto clone as he observed the other clones make the final touches to the summoning seal they had drawn. Just about. We just need to adjust the seal for whoever it is we plan to summon, said another clone as he finished drawing the outer part of the seal. Nodding in understanding, the first clone closed his eyes and went through who would be best suited to summon to handle the snakes destroying the village. All right, adjust the seal to summon the Inferno twins. I'm sure they'd love to have some fun, said the first clone as the others nodded in agreement and began to make the necessary adjustments. A few minutes later, the 6 clones were positioned around the seal, gathering the chakra necessary for the summoning. The 6 clones then began to go through the hand signs necessary for the summoning before they all finished in the ram sign. Opening their eyes, the 6 clones slammed theirs on the ground in front of them at the same time with a roar of summoning jutsu, Inferno twins. All fighting around the village stopped as a massive cloud of smoke appeared just outside the village walls. The Konoha ninja were worried that the enemy had summoned even more snakes to help destroy the village, while the invading forces thought that their allies must have summoned another snake to help them. As the smoke cleared though, The Konoha ninja couldn't stop the shiver that ran down their spines at the sight before them. While the invading forces were confused, they had never heard of anyone holding a summoning contract for that animal clan. Outside the walls of Konohagakure no Sato stood two four-tailed foxes. Their orange fur shone in the rays of the sun as they unleashed a mighty roar that shook the foundations of the village itself. Everyone who had lived through the Kyuubi attack 13 years ago was frozen in place, memories of that fateful night resurfacing. The roar of the Kyuubi as it attacked the village echoing in their ears as they all watched the two foxes slowly made their way to the village, each person silently praying to their fallen loved ones as it seemed they would soon be joining them in the afterlife. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.